How do monsters predict the future? They use a horoscope. What's going on, YouTube? So today we're going to talk about the Halloween event. Why? Well, a couple reasons. One, because I completely forgot when I was making my October guide that Halloween occurs in October. Because listen, what happens is you get inundated with all this, Christmas propaganda, and you forget that Elder Scrolls Online and the world in general has a Halloween event. And the ESO Halloween event is actually pretty important in getting specific items that will set you and your characters up for success. So I got this black cat with me to go over the Halloween event with you and talk about potential dates, times, rewards, and everything that goes along with it. So when we're looking at past times, you can see that pretty universally we're going to start either in the second or the third week of October and then generally end around right at the beginning of November. So that's probably around the same time frame that we're going to be looking in for this year, even though we don't have an official confirmation from ZeniMax as of yet. But let's look at the general information that we've got. Now, this is the information from 2022. Unfortunately, ZeniMax is probably going to release the information like 2 days before the event starts. So we're not going to know exactly the specifics as to the new motive, but we can always just replace certain information for what would have been just last year's into what's going to be kind of going forward this year. So how do you get started? What are the general heads and tails of the information here? So as always, you can jump into it by the free quest in the Crown store in the featured section, and then you're going to get the Witch Whistles memento. And the nice thing is, if you've got that from last year, you could just use that automatically from your mementos. You don't even have to actually use or do the quest again or anything like that. Just go ahead and use it. Once you've done that, you get your 100% XP buff. What's important is that this is one of the main reasons of the event, in my opinion, is the XP event. The last time we've had an XP event has been a little while. So this is going to give us an XP event, finally, that we've been waiting for. So it's double XP, and we got the goodies to go along with that. And it also can make your character look undead, if you want to look like this little guy on the right here. Now let's go into the rewards from the Plunder Skulls. Now, for some reason, ZeniMax always tells you what you get from the Plunder Skulls before it tells you how to get them, but what you're going to get is the provisioning and furnishing recipes. This is essential. We'll talk about that later. Fragments for pets, various crafting materials, various creepy crawlies, and then the special Witches Festival crafting writs, which can, by doing those, you get the Hollowjack style motive. Is the style motive worth it? Unfortunately, when you've had a motif that's been out for so long, it loses a lot of value because a lot of players that have it, that wanted it, already have it. So it's very hard to continue to sell those that have been out for so long. Think about like the Imperial motive. They used to be worth like crazy amounts of money. Dwemer motives, even like the ancient elf styles, a long time ago. Now people give those away for free sometimes. So that's the unfortunate reality of when something's been out for so long. But they do look really cool. Full credit to the people who designed the Hollowjack style. And then we have ourselves, how do you farm these bad boys? Well, all you have to do is kill an arena final boss, invasion bosses. Now, invasion bosses, just think public events. Delve bosses, dungeon final bosses, public dungeons, sweeper and quest bosses, trial final bosses, and world bosses. You might be thinking to yourself, that's a lot of variety that I can do to get these Plunder Skulls. What is the best thing to do? Best thing to do, not the worst thing, you want to do the best thing. The best thing, in my opinion, is delve bosses and world bosses. We'll look at some routes at the end of the video because there's usually a good cluster of areas that I like to go to when it comes to farming areas, such as you could farm the Alakir Desert Dolems, you can farm the Bankarai world boss kind of triangle, you go to Deshaun. We'll look at that at the end of the video. We'll kind of keep going through the rewards though. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, look, Jake, I have a chance to get these Dwemer motive pages, based on which content I do. And to that I say, you could buy those for about 100 gold each, and on PC where inflation's real bad, maybe like 500 gold each. So do not worry about getting the Dremora motif style. Unfortunately, it suffers from the same problem we talked about earlier. It's been in the game too long to maintain any sort of value, and it's just overall not worth getting. And the nice thing too is that your 2 event tickets will basically come from the first time you beat any boss. world boss, public dungeon boss, event boss, trial, dungeon, yada, 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 yada. And because of that, it's very easy to get your event tickets. Super good. The only thing I don't necessarily like about this, and the impresario rewards will be different for this year, so we don't actually quite know what will be in there, but I suspect it's going to be very similar. There's really nothing that jumps out to me during these events that I go, ooh, you definitely need this, or you guys should go out and buy this. So it's really one where you can kind of save your event tickets. You can use them to get your fragments of your Passion Dancer costume, if that stuff interests you, but overall, it's not anything that I think is going to be super crazy. However, I do like the Witch's Grab Bag. What is the Witch's Grab Bag, you might be wondering? Well, the Witch's Grab Bag is similar to previous grab bags that we've had. And that is where you can get items from previous years that actually are really good. Now, these are non-tradable, so while some items on here usually sell for a ton of gold, you're not going to be able to sell them because they would be bound to you. However, some of these masks themselves look great, and I would actually kind of encourage you guys, if you're like, none of these rewards look really cool, but I've, missed some years, I want to go out and do these. And as an added bonus, if you guys get yourself these mementos and stuff, because sometimes you can find them for pretty cheap, like the cauldron, memento fragments and stuff like that, you can get those. And if you have it, you're not going to get it again. So if you find like a Thicket Man spectral mask really cheap, you can bind it to you. That way you have a chance to get some of the ones that you don't have, like the pumpkin one or the scarecrow one, etc., etc. I love grab bags. There's ways you can kind of finick with the RNG a little bit, and it can be a good way to get some really cool items that are not available anymore. We're not going to go super far into the weeds with this, but basically Plucking the Crow was an additional quest that was added in 2021. And by completing, you get 3 plunder skulls. You got to kill this bad boy, basically. It's kind of an annoying quest. I don't necessarily know if I think it's worth it. And overall, that's kind of how the event wraps up as to, what you can do. It's just kind of something that I like to note, that you can get 3 plunder skulls by doing it, but they're purple. I mean, you could sit at a delve boss or farm world bosses and get them significantly faster, but just to throw that out there. But what's the real draw of this event? And that is these recipes. So these recipes are almost all good for something. And very rarely do you have event recipes that are so good. But Witch Sugar Skulls is probably, if not the number one recipe to buy, sell, trade. If you think of it almost like a stock, like, when you have, imagine like 50 recipes in your inventory. Not saying you would have 50, but say you farm 50 of them during the event, you go and you buy them all super cheap, and then you sell them on later in the year. You could make tremendous profit. It's very hard to give numbers for console and then compare it to PC. But for example, it usually sells for 10 to 20,000 during the actual Halloween event, and then sometimes throughout the year I was selling it for as much as 140 to 200,000. So I would just have a box of Bewitched Sugar Skulls recipes, because here's the thing: Bewitched Sugar Skulls is probably the most universally suggested buff food, and there's good reason for that. It's not expensive to make. It's very good universally for different types of content, PvE and PvP, and it's just cheap to make, and it's just overall exceptionally good. And so if you're interested, stock up on those bad boys and sell them the rest of the year. But if you do not have this recipe, I would encourage you to go and try to find one cheap in the market somewhere, because that's a recipe that you want to have regardless of if you plan to get into crafting and whatnot, or the recipes and all that other stuff. Even if you don't think you're going to be interested in getting into that, get this recipe. You need it. Other good ones: Purifying and Corrupting Bloody Maras. I just like these because you can kind of finagle your vampirism kind of on the go. I think it's a great utility to have, and overall could just be very helpful. Pack Leader Bone Broth is another one of the best in slot recipes. Witch Mothers, Potent Brew and Party Punch are both good. I believe I always get them mixed up. I don't know if I have her over, if it'll show me. I believe it's the Potent Brew that's the one that's better. I always going to kind of get them wrong and mixed up. As far as these other ones, the Ghastly Eye is also really good. This is the one that everyone does their trials dummy parses with if they're a Magicka character, because it gives you the maximum amount of mag and mag recovery, unless you're doing something like using Psy or something. But if that If you don't fully understand what I'm talking about, just trust me, it's a really good one that you can usually sell. And these other ones are just a little bit, you don't have to worry a super whole lot about these other ones. But overall, the stuff here is really good, and the recipes here are what makes this event amazing. The furnishing also is pretty decent. It's probably going to be the exact same, but usually you can get a little bit of gold for selling just pre-made furnishings if you would be interested in doing that. So what are the easiest event farms? I don't have a dedicated event farms video breakdown for this, but I would say Alakir Desert, probably numero uno. Everyone's got access to the Alakir Desert. It's the #1 XP area, in my opinion, for new players. Don't kill me in the comments when you tell me there's a better XP area. I know there's better ones, but when it comes to ease of access, ability to kind of do it quickly, there's nothing that beats the Alakir Desert. The Dolems are so close to the actual way shrines. It's just easy. It'll get you a bunch of plunder skulls, and turn your brain off. You can farm a whole bunch of them. If you want something that's a little bit faster, I would suggest the Bankrai World Boss Triangle. It's also got a little dolmen sprinkled in there that you can kind of do every so often if you're interested. Overall, super easy area, in my opinion. Very close when it comes to World Boss density. I think World Bosses are a little bit more rewarding. The sets from Bankrai are also better than the Alakir Desert, but selling them might be a little finicky during the event with how many people are going to be farming it, but overall, another good area to look at. Deshaun is like the universal backup to areas if, for example, too many people are in the Alakir Desert. There's way shrines very close to the dolmens. They've got world bosses that are very spread out. In my opinion, the actual dolmen route there is usually where people will kind of go if there's too many people in the Alakir Desert. But Deshaun also has really good world boss density, and it's very flat too, so you don't have to worry about that. Don't mind all these mountains. They're basically off to the sides. You don't have to worry about those. But it's a great area. The sets there are also pretty decent to sell, and I actually think that Plague Doctor might be one that sells pretty decently when it comes to the Endless Archive, just based on how good of a set that it was originally when people started to farm Maelstrom, back in the day. So curious to see how it will do. But I think that when you couple that with Mother's Sorrow, they're decent sets to sell. And I always like to add a little bit of a spicy pick in here, and that's Southern Elsewhere for dragons. You can see that the dragons right now not being really farmed at all. They're usually big mamma jammas. Dragon's Blood, Dragon's Bile, some of the best re-ingredients in the game, and I think that's only going to be amplified by how much PvE content is farmed in Q4 with the Endless Archive. And I think that if you're looking for the most profit-based driven method that's going to be amplified by you getting plunder skulls, you getting good rewards, dragon farming is the way to go. I will do a full breakdown on the farming routes as we get closer to the event, but this is my juicy, spicy pick for right now. But dear friends, that's going to wrap up the video. We've gone a little bit longer than I usually do in my event breakdown videos, so please don't kill me. But I try to make my all-encompassing video first, and then we can kind of break down the nitty-gritty a little bit further. So we'll talk a little bit in the future about specific routes, where you can go, XP farming areas. If you're really interested in XP farming, what should you do? If you really want to maximize gold, if you want to maximize plunder skulls, break that down individually. If you want to try to finagle the little RNG, if you want to try to get yourself some good RNG from those Witch Mothers grab bags, we'll have a dedicated video to that. But that's going to be the end of this one. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. We are doing our 3 giveaway drawings. All you have to do is like the video. Stay subscribed if you're not already subscribed. And then the third one, a random word be flashed upon the screen. Last month it was Worcestershire sauce. I made it as obvious as I promised I would. And I will do that this month too. So that's my reward for you guys for listening on all the videos. So thank you guys again, and I'll catch you later. Bye, guys.
You better remember to like and subscribe to Jake Clips. Or you should. I might have to pluck your eyes if you don't. Or, better yet, I'll skip rope with your entrails. Do it now. Subscribe. Ta-ta. Off with you.
Thank you guys so much again for sticking around. If you are interested in my video from yesterday, we broke down the Impresario. Check out that video from yesterday. It's a good breakdown of ESO's goofiest vendor, in my opinion. You've got yourself an event ticket vendor, and now, too, you've actually got 2 more event ticket vendors, which I think is actually a really cool addition. But if you're ever curious about how fragments work, if you're ever curious about how any of those little weird systems interact with each other, check out that video and stay tuned for some more, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Peace.